Today's topic of discussion is what is a FinOps career? Of our four-part series, FinOpsBE, Inclusive FinOps Career Conversations. My name is Regina Schulte, and I'm a Community Advisor Lead with the FinOps Foundation. Before I introduce our panelists and our moderator, I want to share with you a little bit about how this series came about. Through our DEI group, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, we wanted to provide real-life experiences on how people have moved into their FinOps careers, what motivated them to make a change, what steps they took, what challenges they faced. We felt that by others sharing their experiences, it would help those contemplating a change or currently experiencing a change. And because we are a part of a DEI group, it was important to us that we demonstrate through this series diversity, equity, and inclusion. And during several discussions, we had to remind ourselves that diversity isn't always visible. Therefore, over the course of this four-part series, we believe we've created an inclusive panel that's diverse not only in cultural background and gender, but just as important, diverse in experience, in skills, titles, and education. And regarding how the B in FinOps came about, it was just a consensus among our group that we want to do all we can to ensure that people who participate in these sessions feel they can be themselves, they can be whoever they want to be, and that they feel a sense of belonging. Before we go any further, I do need to review with you the FinOps Foundation Code of Conduct. This is very important. We ask all who participate in our community events to contribute, to be respectful to others, to be kind to each other, to be inclusive, and to please not do any sales pitches. We also do not allow the use of bots, and we need to make you aware that this session is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on our FinOps Foundation YouTube channel. I'm going to introduce to you our three panelists and our moderator, and then our discussion will begin, but it's important for me to remind everyone that our panelists will be sharing their personal opinions, knowledge, and expertise in the field of FinOps. It's important to clarify that their views are their own and do not represent the official positions, policies, or endorsements of the companies they work for or the FinOps Foundation. This discussion is intended to reflect only their individual experiences and insights in the FinOps domain. For the discussion, everyone is going to be muted, but feel free to type your questions in the chat, and then we'll answer them when we get to the end and we open it up for Q&A. And we also invite everyone to turn on their cameras if comfortable. You know, we believe that seeing your faces enhances an experience and certainly helps to build a sense of community. And then we'll close out the session with me telling you a little bit about our upcoming FinOpsBE sessions, as well as how you can become involved in the FinOps Foundation community. So let's meet our panelists and our moderator. First, let me introduce you to our 2023 FinOps Community Champion, Simar Arora. Simar is a senior cloud engineer with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Simar is fundamentally a storyteller and a teacher. He loves bringing people together to solve problems and pain points. Simar is passionate about solving cloud cost optimization challenges in the FinOps domain. Simar completed his MBA from Cornell University in 2023. He lives in Austin, Texas. Simar has been a part of the FinOps Foundation community for 2 years. Welcome, Simar.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Michelle Dupuis. Michelle is a senior principal at Daughterty Business Solutions. Michelle has worked with many organizations over the years in either a team or consultative capacity. With her 25 years of IT experience, she's developed management insights used by some of the largest organizations like Charles Schwab and Walgreens. Her innovative approach to cloud governance and optimization has transformed organizations to use and buy cloud better. Michelle's varied background in tech allows her to relate to organizations globally and provide value to those looking to begin or already on their cloud journey. Michelle lives in Western Massachusetts and has been a part of the FinOps Foundation community for 3 years. Welcome, Michelle.
Yeah.
Our last panelist is Gourav Kapoor. Gourav is a seasoned digital transformation leader with over 18 years of experience. He has consistently directed, managed, and delivered engineering and cloud strategies that drive business success for Fortune 500 organizations. Gourav's career has been marked by relentless pursuit of excellence in cloud architecture, FinOps, and technical leadership, resulting in a track record of delivering multi-million-dollar global projects and driving significant revenue growth. Gourav lives in Ottawa, Canada, and has been a part of the FinOps Foundation community for over a year. Welcome, Gourav.
Thank you.
Lastly, I will introduce to you this session's moderator, Leiyian Motongo. Leiyian is currently a FinOps consultant with Apptio. Leiyian is a seasoned FinOps consultant with a passion for maximizing cost efficiency and optimizing cloud operations. With a decade of experience in the tech industry, Leiyian has honed an exceptional skill set that combines financial expertise with technical acumen. He has served as a key economic and business case analyst stakeholder relative to technology funding decisions made at the CIO, CFO, CTO levels. Leiyian lives in Austin, Texas, and has been a part of the FinOps Foundation community for 3 years. Welcome, Leiyian.
Thank you.
And at this point, I'm going to turn things over to you to begin our discussion.
Thank you, Regina, and welcome to the group. We're very excited for y'all to be here today. In preparation for this, I had a lot of audience, which I'm hoping they're in the audience today, hit me up on their excitement. Who are looking to recruit for FinOps roles. I've had people who are new to technology and then from different parts of technology, cloud technology, right? That are looking, what is FinOps? And so in today's session, I encourage particularly those who are new to cloud technology to lean into, pay particular attention into the skills that our panels have brought with them. First, what is FinOps? And Michelle, I'm gonna give this question to you. Can you level set, what is FinOps to begin with? It's the new discipline. What is it?
What is FinOps? FinOps, it's an operating model that brings financial accountability to the variable spend of the cloud. It's allowing you to operate at scale in the cloud. You manage costs without sacrificing the flexibility and the velocity. That's the whole point of cloud. So the FinOps Foundation, they have a definition, and I'll read it to you for a minute. It says, what is FinOps? FinOps is an evolving cloud financial management discipline and cultural practice that enables organizations to get maximum business value by helping engineering, finance, technology, and business teams to collaborate on data-driven spending decisions. The FinOps has 3 distinct phases, and we'll cover some of that today. It's inform, optimize, and operate. With FinOps, your teams work together. They optimize the speed, cost, and quality of cloud, empowering companies to truly rule their cloud spend. Is FinOps about saving money? FinOps is about making money. So by optimizing empowered delivery teams, you can get the value of the cloud, strip away blockers, and deliver more for your business and help them grow. That's what FinOps is.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for level setting us. And, you know, this is when you hear making money, haven't businesses always been about making money and saving money as it relates to technology? Simar, can you walk us through what is the purpose of this new practice to begin with? How did we get here from other disciplines that we've had in the on-prem world?
Okay, thank you, Leiyian. So first of all, why does a practice like FinOps even exist? If we go back to 2012 or 2014, when majority of the workloads were on-premises, so a thing like FinOps did not exist because you knew what your costs or cloud or on-prem costs will be a year ahead. A major shift that has happened on the cloud is that everything has become on demand or elastic. So you can scale up to thousands of workloads in a second and bring down your workloads also in the same time frame. That has brought a major issue. How do these companies forecast their costs, or how do these companies tell what will be my cost for 2024? That is where a practice like FinOps becomes very important, where practitioners like Gourav, Michelle are coming together to let the organizations forecast better, save money better. Since I believe that cloud will continue to grow and we are only 10% in our cloud journey now. Like only 10% of the workloads are on cloud. So FinOps is a fastly evolving field, and a lot of new job opportunities will continue coming over the next decade as we see.
Exactly. You know, that's some things we've never even thought to question, right? Before, a lot of our engineers did not, because A, they didn't have access to the data, right? And then B, it wasn't their responsibility, right? And so this new framework, when you read into some of those principles, everybody taking ownership of the cloud, it sounds easy. It sounds very intuitive, but we were not doing that, and for the reasons that Simar laid out. So thank you so much, Simar, for that. Gourav report. I often talk about the three different aspects of the term FinOps, or in the book, I don't know if it will come out here, Cloud FinOps, same concept, but I talk about it being a framework or a community or the practitioner. And Michelle has reached into what the framework means, the official discipline means. Can you walk the audience through what FinOps means within your organization or a given organization?
Absolutely. Right. So let's understand this, right? So FinOps is relatively a new discipline within the cloud computing industry, right? And that focuses on optimizing and managing the costs associated with the cloud services. And as Simar said, right, that the shift has happened, right? And now we have to understand how we essentially roll out this particular framework within an organization or this particular practice within an organization. Now, in order to do that, what we need to understand is the three different key aspects of rolling out a FinOps practice or a FinOps framework within an organization. Now, those three aspects are essentially FinOps framework, FinOps practitioner, and FinOps community. Let's talk a little bit about each of those in a little bit of detail, right? So let's start with FinOps framework. FinOps framework essentially is a set of principles, best practices, methodologies, which are essentially used to manage the cloud cost and the financial operations effectively. If you look at it, you'll find it's a very structured approach in optimizing cloud spending while ensuring that your cloud resources are aligned with the business goals, right? Now, as Michelle touched on some of the three phases, inform, operate, and optimize, right? So each of these phases of the life cycle within the life cycle of FinOps gives you certain capabilities. In the inform phase, you will essentially understand how you can make the use of the full visibility into the cloud spending and the usage. You will talk about the optimize phase, where you will continuously identify and implement cost-saving measures. And then you will talk about the operationalization of it so that we can do it at scale within an organization, in which would include setting up policies, governance structure, reporting, building the culture, and all of those pieces. The second important part is the FinOps practitioner. Now, FinOps practitioner essentially is an individual or a team which is responsible for implementing this framework or rolling out this practice within an organization. These practitioners are the key people who are essentially driving the cost optimization and financial accountability within the cloud world, right? And they do various tasks, right, which would include talking about cloud cost analysis, looking at AWS, Azure, Google, any cloud provider, understanding their cost mechanisms, talking about budget management. What is it going to be our budget for the next year, working with different organizations, which is within your organization, different groups like finance and engineering and product. Some of the important ones are tool selection, right? We need to understand what tools, what technologies are we using to analyze our costs, how are we optimizing our cost spend, right? There are certain variety of tools from cloud providers as well as from different vendors, essentially. All of that role encompasses of the FinOps practitioner role, who is essentially capable of essentially driving all these initiatives. Then the third aspect, which is the FinOps community, is a very, very important aspect of it, right? And when I started with FinOps world probably 2 years ago, I became a member of the FinOps Foundation and started learning a lot from community and understood, right, how different organizations are following certain practices depending upon their usage and how they run it within their organization. But this community, if you will find, this represents a global network of professionals, right? You will find organizations becoming part of it. You'll find experts who are part of it. there's a wide range of stakeholders, essentially, if I'll talk about that includes practitioners, leaders, your cloud providers, your vendors, you'll find industry associations, right? And this is a very, very helpful platform, essentially. You can probably be part of the meetups and conferences. You can join the online forums. There are certifications to educate individuals on those core FinOps principles and practices, right? So in summary, I would say this holistic approach where you look at these three aspects of framework, you look at practitioner and community, that helps any organization essentially in achieving the greater financial control and efficiency in their cloud operations.
Thank you so much, Gourav. Hey, Simar, I want to switch gears just a little bit. And I've been hearing a lot about your name. And before I ask this, team, I had to go off video, so is life, to stabilize the internet. So the cute kid is my son there. So, but anyway, back to our program. Simar, I've been hearing your name circulate a lot. In the intro, we talked about you won one of the community awards on this recent FinOps X. You were also highlighted earlier in this year on one of our summit calls. Can you walk us through? So I would think that intuitively you've been in our space for years, but as it turns out, you're relatively a newcomer into this space. Can you kind of walk us through what your journey has looked like coming in, your background prior to FinOps, and then how you landed in FinOps and how you're growing in our space?
Okay, thank you so much for this, Leiyian. I'm still learning from like seasoned leaders like Gourav, who is one of us here, who has been in this space for years, and I'm very new in this space, as you pointed out. So just speaking about my journey, this goes back to December 2021. So kind of, I was in India back then, and the role or job that I was doing became redundant. So, but in that adversity, there was also an opportunity when I called my mentor. So my mentor was like, you always wanted to move to the United States. So what happened to that plan? And I was like, okay, let me apply to a couple of business schools and see whether things click. So made it to Cornell University for my MBA. After that, was lucky to I was just thinking like, what will I do after my MBA? So I reached out to one of the FinOps ambassadors, who is like Dieter Madzian, and I informed Dieter that he has been a capacity planner at Google, Roku, Intuit. So how did he get there? How can I get in there? So Dieter was like, join this amazing community, which is the FinOps community, and get FinOps certified. Try to practice, get involved in working groups in the FinOps community. So that's what I exactly did. Got certified. I was part of the sustainability working group, did a project at Cornell on sustainability, which was very well received by the community, presented in the March Summit regarding that. And then the JR or the person who leads this, he asked me, like, what do you want to do on graduation? I was like, I want to work as a practitioner because I feel this field is growing. So I can add a lot of value to it. So a lot of blessings by my mentors, but finally I'm here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simar. And I want to double click into that last part, mentors. But before we do, I had a question pop up on the channel here. And to the audience, please feel free to list questions out there. But Simar, do you think you can address this? I have completed, this is what Joseph says, I have completed the FinOps practitioner certification. What would you recommend to focus on now while I continually look for my first FinOps focused position? My current plan is studying for more cloud certifications. So he has the FinOps practitioner courses certification locked down. He's looking at other cloud certifications, but do you have any other recommendations for him to focus on?
First of all, please be patient. Like, take it as a 6 months journey, or like it took me 9 months to land my first job. So it is a lot about the patience that you start with. Second of all, this community has been very open. So see if you can join the Slack channel, first of all. Like, and after joining the Slack channel, there are a lot of working groups that are there. See the topics that you are passionate about specifically in the working group. Like I was passionate about sustainability in specific because I felt the environment is my concern and it should be everyone's concern. So I wanted to take a look in that aspect. But whatever you want to connect with, there are around 25 working groups. Try to join those meetings every weekly once. Try to contribute towards these meetings. I'm not sure which city you are based out of, but I joined the New York and Washington, D.C. road shows. So make sure that you go to those summits and meet those people. The more people you will meet, the more you will understand what is their requirement in their specific organization. So you can skill yourself specifically. And when the right opportunity comes, they will reach out to you as the first person because you have just built that relation over time. Elon Musk says it, I'm like that your networking is your net worth. So just start with networking and everything will manifest over time.
Thank you so much, Simar. If I can revisit one of the things you just said earlier about about a mentor, or even a sponsor as well, but what role did they play in advancing your career into FinOps? Can you kind of unpack that for us?
Absolutely. So how I look at it, or how I say it, is that after that phase of my life where my job became redundant and I call it the dark phase. So I look back at my life when I was the happiest in my life, and the answer I got was when I was a kid, when I had a lot of teachers. I knew how to grow. They would guide me without any expectations. And as I grew older in my 20s, I just forgot that. Like, I thought I knew everything. And I thought that's why it was a lesson from God to become humble again. And this has been the role of mentors for me. I have never had a moment of self-doubt because there are people who have been a practitioner. When I look at Dieter, when I look at Mike Rosenberg, and they were ready to guide me. They were ready to tell me how I can get into this journey, what are the skills I need. So it was just walking down the path that they were showing to me. And this is what I tell to young people as well, like people in their 20s, reach out to many people. Like there are people like Michelle, Gourav, Leiyian, and many others in the community. Ask them, how did they get there? All of us have a backstory. None of us are like super intelligent or super perfect. But as long as you don't speak up, we don't know. So speak up, reach out to mentors. If they support you, your career will just accelerate super fast.
Thank you so much, Simar. And Michelle, I'm gonna look into individuals who are looking for FinOps roles at different companies. Do you mind addressing this question I often get? When one is looking for FinOps roles at different companies, what are some of the things that one should be looking for in a company, or what are some of the things that you look for in a company before joining?
So I think everyone's individual decisions are their own. Like, what kind of organization do you want to work for? The beauty of FinOps is you can work for any type of business you want to. So, some people gravitate towards certain things. I spent the better part of my career in financial services. It's an area I've always enjoyed, but you certainly can be in healthcare or retail or many other areas. I look at overall that what is the company and how is that important to me. I mean, I think everyone wants a company that's financially sound because they want stability in their life, but I found working in financial services, because we always had the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, we were always very actively involved in community where we lived. So we had opportunities to work for places that were involved and did things with the United Way, with junior achievement, and having time to volunteer and be involved in community. And what I liked so much about FinOps was it's a lot about change and driving change in an organization. And we had strong relationships when I worked in financial services to work across teams and develop relationships by doing Habitat for Humanity and things like that. And so when I got out of financial services, I found how much I really missed that. So when the opportunity came along to work for Daughterty, I just loved the idea of that they were so driven, to have that as part of their inner workings of the company, and everyone gets involved because we are remote. So you need to build those relationships. And I find, by being able to be involved, and as soon as I got on board, they instantly asked me if I wanted to be involved in DEI for the New York region. And I was so happy to be able to be a leader in that. And then I'll get to know more people within the organization. And again, we'll be able to help communities in that area. And so that was really exciting. So those are some of the things that are personally important to me, and I look for when I look for my next opportunity.
Thanks, Michelle. And talking about change and driving change, we look at your background, Michelle. You actually came from a radical, well, it feels almost radically different, right? A more infrastructure and operations background. Can you walk us through what are some of the differences that you have experienced from coming from more traditional engineering background, and what it's like on your day-to-day within as a FinOps practitioner and now FinOps consultant?
I think you'll find, and we'll probably talk about this more today in an upcoming series, that there's many different areas that people come into FinOps from. So traditionally, I know I spoke at FinOps X with Melanie about this, and I think our talk was just regionally published, but on the YouTube channel for FinOps. And we talked about that because Melanie came from a finance background. I came from an engineering background. You could come back, from project management, be a Scrum, person, be in procurement, and all of those roads might lead you to a FinOps opportunity. For me, what really helped was I was a solution design engineer. And so we managed a lot of infrastructure projects in the organization. So those project management skills, and I was often responsible for financial projects and dealing with that. I also, in my operations, we were responsible for desktop operations. I created every SKU in the organization. As far as what laptop you got, I had a SKU for it. You ordered it because I could control financially how much the company spent, and also deal with the fact that the OS worked on it. So those things were all important to me. So when I first saw the cloud and went to a class on it, I'm like, are you nuts? You're going to let engineers go out and pick what they want to build? They're going to build the biggest, best thing they can. Who's paying for this? And then, we discussed about how you would put controls in place, the same as I did with desktops, and make sure that you had VMs and SKUs. You never want to stop the agility. You just want to put guardrails there and have conversations and figure out what makes sense. So although it was different, a lot of the different areas working with enterprise architecture, having done, application rationalizations, all of those help today in my current role as a consultant. If you think about as a day-to-day practitioner, I think some of the things you think about is the number one thing I think as a day-to-day practitioner, you want to understand what your daily spend is. You need to understand the spend of your organization so that you can help everyone else and see where those spikes are coming from and where there's opportunities to reduce waste. And then you work on building communication channels across the organization, building inroads with your finance and your other teams. I think that's important. For me, building a program around that. In a consultant role, I spend more time now upskilling our organization internally with training so that everyone understands FinOps and opportunities, and then working with clients and assessing their maturity in their FinOps practices, having discussions around the pitfalls of FinOps, how I can help them on their journey. You know, we're 4 years in now, so we're seeing different things, which is really challenging. So that's why I really enjoy, you know, consulting with organizations and working with people like Simar. You know, when he first got on this new role, he was in Azure, and I said, hey, let me put you with some of the best Azure experts in the business who helped me when I was at Walgreens. And, you know, putting those great leaders thinking, you know, how do we do this? What's the approach? How can I do it better? And that's what I love about the community is if you need help or you want to brainstorm about something, that's the way to do it. And then, you know, having those weekly check-ins and then going to meetups and having discussions around it. So it's been a great journey because of the community. And one other thing I'll tell you about Simar is he always smiles. So if you want to follow anything, when I would meet Simar at any event we went, he would smile and come up and introduce himself. And that was one of the things that always resonated with me.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Hey, Michelle, just one more question, if you don't mind, that we got
Sure.
from one of the audience members. Dom asked a couple of questions. I think one I'm gonna fill to Gourav, but Dom asked first, what are some of the entry-level FinOps roles? I'm gonna have Gourav answer that here in a second. But she then also says, what are ways to get your feet wet other than reading and certs? Could you recommend some tactical ways for people to get into FinOps, you know, when they don't have that background?
So I think the working groups are the closest that you're going to come as far as learning and seeing it, because there's real work actually occurring in those. And so that's a great opportunity to meet with other people and work on papers and do things. The other thing I think you can do is you can get an account in one of your clouds and actually do some of that stuff. And like if it was AWS, for an example, you could set up budget alerts. You could start practicing all of those different pieces and get a feel for that to be more familiar before that first opportunity comes along for you.
Got it. Thank you. Gourav, I really want to double click into your background here. So FinOps is such a new field. You know, a lot of organizations are struggling with building out teams. You know, what does those job descriptions look like? You're a director of FinOps. Can you expand on the different career opportunities, different roles within FinOps?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I see a lot of chat happening around the roles and the possibilities of getting experience in this, right? So I think this is the perfect timing for that, right? So I think the one thing we have to understand is that career progression in FinOps, it can vary depending upon individual skills, the experience, and the organization structure, and also their passion, right? As Simar was saying, what are things are you passionate about looking at those working groups, right? What are your passions? What are the specific things which entice you and say, oh, I want to do more into this particular field of the technology or the finance, right? Now, I'm going to talk about some of the common career progression paths when you're starting, or if you're someone starting as either a FinOps analyst, or if you're even a little bit more experienced in the FinOps world, and what are the paths which essentially are possible for you, right? So let's start with the entry-level roles, which essentially I think has been one of the questions as well, which is the FinOps analyst role, specialist role. You will see job boards saying cloud cost optimization analyst. You will see job boards saying cloud cost analyst or cloud analyst or FinOps analyst. There are different terminologies being used by different organizations in a certain way. But at the end of the day, if you look at their job descriptions, you'll find one thing is very common, right? Which is essentially they're looking for either an entry or a beginner level role, and whose job essentially is day-to-day task is essentially to look at the cloud cost, right? Which Michelle was just saying, your daily spend, your cloud cost analysis, right? You're understanding that cost data, which is coming from different cloud providers, and I think has been the recommendations on the chat as well. Getting a cloud account, understanding what are the different metrics, like how some services are being charged in a different way. That is going to be the day-to-day task, and having that understanding, that foundational understanding about some cloud providers, or even at majority of the cloud providers, you will see the foundation is very, very similar in terms of like, okay, they have a compute layer, they have a storage layer, and so on. So that is usually you will find as an entry-level role FinOps analyst. Then we go one step ahead, then we'll find certain places where they will advertise the role as senior FinOps specialist or a senior cost optimization analyst. Now, what happens in that role is, considering you have a little bit more experience, you will start handling a little bit more complex cost optimization projects, right? In that case, you will start working and pairing up with different, I would say, your partner groups in your organization. You may be partnering up with engineering, you may be partnering up with other cloud teams or DBA teams, and understanding why certain metrics of a particular machine or instance are working in this way. How can we do an optimization case on this, and so on, right? And if you go a step further, if you are a FinOps manager or a director or a senior manager, now as a leader of the FinOps function, right, your responsibilities absolutely varies from the roles I just talked about, right? Now you're setting up the vision and the strategy for cloud cost optimization or cloud cost management. The job is to oversee the entire FinOps team and make sure that your FinOps goals within your organization aligns with your organization's broader objective, right? What are you essentially trying to do, right? And at that level, you probably will be working on some budget management aspect of it. You'll be working on some policy development. You'll be working on setting up collaboration with your different groups within the organization, right? FinOps has to have the major pieces of collaboration with the different departments, right? You cannot just act alone in this piece and say, okay, I'm going to save money or manage money or optimize money. You have to work with different organizations and groups who are supporting those production workloads or running workloads. We're also seeing I would say, a chunk of roles coming up as a FinOps consultant, where these consultants are expert providing support to internal or as well as external clients. You'll find some of them are working independently. You'll find some of them are working on a consulting firms, helping other smaller organizations or enterprises to implement this practice we just talked about, or optimize cloud cost and implement the best practices. I'll talk a few more roles and then I'll probably stop here, right? One or the other role, if you'll find, as some of the people have said, is, okay, they have SA certifications, right? They're not necessarily directly into the FinOps analyst role, but they're more on the technical side of it. You'll find those roles are probably sometimes advertised as FinOps engineers or delivery engineers or SRE engineers. But if you look at the job description, you will find a chunk of that job description goes into managing the cloud infrastructure spend or optimizing it, right? But what they need is a strong technical background, essentially. The idea there is that you will either support or design solutions that balance your performance and the cost effectiveness at that stage, right? So that's where the strong technical background comes handy a lot. And then we have some of the other vendor and cost optimization specialist role we are seeing here, right? These vendor management roles are essentially focusing on third-party services. Majority of the enterprises or SMBs will always be using some of the third-party solutions and partnering and getting licensing and looking at their models, looking at their contracts, looking at the better pricing models. All of that encompasses of the job within a vendor management role. And then the last but not the least one is the new role which is coming up these days is a sustainability FinOps analyst or a manager, right? Now this role particularly concentrate on integrating your sustainability practices of a particular organization or even the general practices into cloud cost management. They will look at analyzing the environmental impact of cloud resources or operations and work on initiatives that will help organizations reduce their carbon emissions, right, while they're optimizing cloud costs at the same time, right? So these are some of the most common roles you will see across the board, across job boards or the LinkedIn portals and so on, and have certain capabilities and different roles playing in the world of FinOps here.
Thank you so much, Gourav. And the sustainability piece is very timely because October is Sustainability Month. So good point. Thank you so much. Hey, Michelle, I'm going to come back to you. And what I wanted to, we've got a lot of questions. I'm going to give you a follow-up question here in a second, but can you help us unpack how does one transition into a career in FinOps?
So I think there's many inroads to coming into a role in FinOps. As far as upscaling, some of the things that I would suggest you do is, as we've mentioned, attend virtual seminars, listen to podcasts, build your soft skills. Really, the things that matter a lot are being able to influence. We spend a lot of time trying to influence other groups to implement optimizations, to centralize financial purchases. Speaking skills really come in handy, as you can see from all of us here today. So groups like Toastmasters, we talked about getting access to a cloud account, being part of the Slack channel here for FinOps and follow chats. Go into a mentor program. Maybe your organization has one. Maybe you can find one. We have one at the FinOps organization. Take your cloud practitioner certification, get your FinOps certification. Those are all things that can lead to a role in FinOps. I would say those are some of the best things you can do.
Thanks, Michelle. Hey, Michelle, you come from that technical background that we said, and we had a few audience members who brought up this, hey, I'm coming from a technical background, but I would like to know more about the finance part of FinOps. And some others said the same thing. How do I build out my finance skills and my finance knowledge? What would you recommend for more technical people to learn that finance components of FinOps?
I would say that you do need to learn the cloud vendors and you do need to understand the cloud. It's going to be essential to understanding the financial piece of how the cloud works. And so that's really, something that you have to, there's courses out there and you can take that, and that's going to help, because infrastructure uses and the variables of it, you have to understand that. You have to understand your workloads, how they're migrated, deployed into the cloud. Those are all things that you're going to need to do. You need to understand budgets from the finance piece. You need to understand how the organization, when I consult with organizations, one of the first questions I ask is, are you doing show back? Or are you doing charge back? Well, how does your organization budget? Who's paying for the cloud? Is it the IT, or is it, individuals? And so there's a lot that you have to understand how expenses flow in your organization, how to estimate a workload. There's a calculator out there, and most teams are trying to do that if they're bringing new workloads into the cloud, so that you understand that. And then you're gonna learn a lot about forecasting. A lot of time is spent on how to forecast. Some companies are mature in it, others are just starting out. So the more you learn about forecasting, the better off you're going to be when it comes to the financial piece of it.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I like Melanie that you mentioned earlier. I come from that finance background, and I got my undergrad in finance. I ended up getting an MBA as well. And I get put to shame when you see the Cloud FinOps book, and I would highly recommend for my more technical people, if you get that Cloud FinOps by J.R. Storman and Mike Fuller, there's a chapter that goes on terminology. And so it has a lot of the finance terminology. It's also on the website too. There's a lot of that information on the website. Net present value, CapEx versus OpEx that Simar was bringing up earlier. But if you can get your hands on the book, or if you can go onto the website, you'll see a lot of the finance concepts there. I will say it's not as scary as an uplift for technical people to learn the financial acumen. Most of it is what Michelle talked about, the forecasting, the budgeting, and then working within working groups to build out those skills if you don't have them. But that is great. Simar, I think I'm going to, before we open it up to some of the questions, and we're going to read through some of them, I want to highlight one item though, more on the DEI area. What are some of the initiatives or organizations you support or collaborate with to promote diversity and inclusion in technology or in?
I think I lost you, Leon.
Sorry, I broken out internet there, but my question to you, Simar, is what are some of the initiatives or organizations you support or collaborate with to promote diversity and inclusion in technology or in FinOps?
Okay, so it can be different for every individual. For me, education is a big part of myself, since I come from a very humble background back in India. And even specific in education, it is more about women education, because the area where I come from, that is not very relevant that women study till graduation or something like that. So with that respect, for me, the first thing that started was I have 5 younger sisters who are cousins mostly. So for me, it was kind of a responsibility as an older brother that they get the necessary education so they can grow up as individuals and contribute to the society. Since I was passionate about this FinOps space in specific, so my sister was a software developer in India, and I knew that there was a role in Apptio cloudability. So I trained her basically what are the skill sets she needs. It was all her effort. I just guided her on the right directions that as a software developer, she needs to be good in Python. She needs to learn the FinOps concepts and all that. And she works in Apptio right now. So that's how I'm passionate about this space. Coming to organizations, so there's an organization called Catalyst based out of India. They are specifically into college going girls and supporting them to build a career in technology. So that is an organization that I have been involved with while I was back in India to support the education of the girls. So that is what I am passionate about, but you can look into the areas where you are most passionate about and contribute in that direction.
Thank you so much, Simar. That's very important. Thank you for unpacking that. Team, we're going to address some of the questions that are, I think we have room for probably 1 to 2 more, and then we're going to give it back to Regina to close us out. Hey, I got this really great question, and I do apologize if I butcher the name, but Prasanna, she says, hey, I'm certified as a cloud AWS and GCP and FinOps practitioner, but getting calls towards FinOps openings is still challenging, and sometimes enterprises are confused about their FinOps JD. So it's more of a point, but can anybody speak to that about how companies are kind of confused of what a FinOps does and what those roles? And Gourav, you unpacked a lot of the different roles within FinOps today. Can any of y'all address her point?
Absolutely, right. I can take it out. Right? So I think some of that statement is actually true. We see that, right? And many times some of the organizations who are themselves getting into this practice of rolling out, right, they don't necessarily understand of what role this essentially analyst is going to play, or how this role is going to be overlapping with some of the existing roles they have within the finance organization or within the cloud organization, right? Now, I cannot certainly comment on the behalf of how they essentially can fix it or not fix it, but I think the general guidance I can give to the candidates, essentially, when we also essentially look for hiring new candidates for the FinOps role, is the most important thing here is showing your relevant experience or talking through about it, right? So giving specific examples, if you essentially end up talking to them or talking about blogs or writing articles, right, writing some of the case studies, how you have experienced essentially some of the you understand the cloud concepts, you understand the cloud billing concepts, right? So you'll have to essentially, I would say, in some sense, advertise yourself. And as Simar has been saying, is like networking has been the key here, and because this is the new field, everybody is learning, everybody's attending these webinars and conferences, right? So joining those relevant online communities essentially plays an absolutely key role here, right? The challenge is going into those organizations' websites, figuring out what those roles are asking for, and when you essentially end up talking to somebody on the other side, probably even asking questions to them essentially is also helpful at many times. It's like, what are they trying to achieve on a bigger goal, right, with this particular role? Sometimes they know, okay, they just want a cloud engineer, but who understands a little bit of FinOps concept, but they start titling it as a FinOps analyst role, right? They don't necessarily understand the 70% or the 90% of the job is going to be provisioning infrastructure through Terraform or something like that, right? So showing your relevant experience in various forms, I would say, is the best thing which can probably attract some of this more traction you're looking for in terms of the jobs. Now, using different platforms, and LinkedIn is probably the most common one, essentially, I personally use, or being part of the community members, looking at the Slack channel. There are tons and tons of jobs being posted all the time.
Thank you so much. I want this one last question. This is a really good one because Gourav, you gave a lot of different backgrounds. And Michelle, I was thinking about you when I saw this, but anybody smart, please feel free to answer this. On Human app.
We lost him. Sorry, you cut out there for your question.
Apologies.
That's okay.
Yeah, the question is, how are FinOps roles different in cloud vendor/consulting firms as compared to end user or practitioner, but end user industries like banking, insurance, and government? So how is the consulting or the vendor piece, that's completely different, right? Different from practitioners. Can any of y'all address that, if there's any differences or contrasts?
Sure, I think Simar and I both can probably answer this. I mean, because we both were recently changing roles. And so for me, having come from financial services, I understood that world very well. And then it was just migrating into the cloud, and insurance is often the same way, highly regulated fields, and sometimes very frustrating for technologists because we are so driven by restrictions and being audited in certain things. So we have to have a lot more guardrails, which I was very used to a governance piece. So that worked. Retail looks a little different. I was in healthcare. I worked at Walgreens, obviously. So those areas, transitioned over. For vendors, I mean, working for a cloud provider, that's a much different role. It's a technical, organization. And then I think the other opportunity is obviously consulting for me. I consult for a lot of Fortune 500 companies, so I'm very comfortable because I've had that experience. So that was why it was a good fit for me. And then there's also software vendors. There's a lot of tooling vendors and a lot of opportunity in that space. I spoke with several of them before I made the decision to go into consulting. And I think, Simar, you want to answer how you kind of decided to go where you went with your, working as a practitioner versus working for a vendor or, software tool?
I think, Michelle, you covered the vendor part really well. So I'll just double dive on the practitioner part for a second. So the main difference is, as a consultant or as a vendor, I am not responsible for implementing that change. I am responsible for telling you what to do, but you are responsible for driving that change in your organization. As a consultant, you can generally manage 10 to 15 clients at a time, because your responsibility is just going, meeting them once a week or something, and letting them know what the opportunities are or how to get there. As a vendor, things become slightly more challenging. As a practitioner, it becomes like it is, you must be in love with talking to people where you don't have any power, basically. So you will go in a lot of meeting with a lot of different teams. So these are how my traditional meeting goes. How has their cloud cost been? How is their cloud cost growing? What is their forecast for 2024, since we are approaching that time? And then there will be like pushbacks. Oh no, this costs are too high. Then we'll be like, okay, so these are the optimization opportunities that are there that we can drive towards over a period of time. This is from the engineering side. Then on the finance side, we need to collaborate on chargeback and showback very frequently every month, so that we are on track to forecast. I call it as a role where if you want to understand what are the different systems in your IT completely, you will know as a FinOps person. You're not in an engineering team. You're responsible for the entire firm's cloud or IT.
Exactly. Thank you, Simar, Michelle, and Gourav. At this moment, we're going to hand this back to Regina to close this out.
I hate to end that discussion. It's been absolutely wonderful, you guys. Thank you. Thank you. But it's time we move on. I've got some closing remarks and some items of importance that I want to share with you. As you know, this is the first in a 4-part series. Our next session will be held sometime, hopefully later in October or possibly early November. And that session is how to get into FinOps. The third session in our series, targeted for November, is how to transition into FinOps from finance. And then our final session in this series, which may be held after the first of the year because of the holidays, It will be on how to move from a contributor to a manager of FinOps practices. So please watch our events page on FinOpsBE for more details and when registration opens up for these upcoming events. There are so many ways. I know this was some of the questions in the chat. There's so many ways to get involved with the FinOps Foundation community. You can join our community Slack channel where you can ask questions and learn from others asking questions. You can attend our events like this event. We have local road shows and meetups. We have virtual summits, and our biggest event, the best conference you will ever attend, FinOpsX. Sign up for one of our numerous training programs, get certified, receive one of our badges. You can become a speaker and share your knowledge, expertise, and career journey with others in the community, just like our panelists did today. You can join a working group and work with others on projects and creating learning resources. And then these are just a few of the ways to get involved. To learn more about joining the FinOps Foundation community and getting started with us, you can go to FinOps.org. Just choose community and then getting started. And if you're not already a part of this amazing community, we really do hope you'll check it out and join us. I will be sending all of you a very brief survey via email. We would appreciate it if you would take just a couple of minutes. It'll be 4 or 5 questions to share with us your thoughts on today's session, what went well, what we can improve on, and even what are some of your ideas for future topics for sessions like these. We do value your input. And then finally, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to our amazing panelists, to our amazing moderator. Thank you to the group of people whose faces you see here. They are the group of community members that has worked to put this series together. Kate, Amit, Theo, Deja, Deanna, Leiyian, and Idalise. We can't thank you enough for your time, your ideas, your effort. Thank you. And lastly, thank you to everyone who took the time out of their day to join us. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.